Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs, your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We are back trying to provide you, Russ will refuse to let me tell you it's therapy, maybe reality on the back of Tottenham Hotspur's 2-1 defeat at home to West Ham United. Just quite frankly, it is one of those spells under Ange Postecoglou where, look, the man actually warned us that there will be bumps in the road, and most certainly this is more than just a bump. If you're listening to the show for the first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We are, of course, all media platforms. We're, of course, on X. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook too. And like I said, we're joined by a wonderful panel here. We're joined by broadcaster extraordinaire Russ Williams back on Last Word on Spurs, as is actor TJ Ramini and the brilliant Sammy Powell on this Last Word on Spurs. These guys are going to try and break it down, offer some form of perspective as to what we are witnessing with Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. Before we do get right into things, I just need to say something at the very, very top of this show. Many may well have already been aware of this because obviously this was put out earlier on the socials. Jason McGovern, Jason, obviously a regular to Last Word on Spurs, really dear, true friend of mine, unfortunately lost his father earlier today. And, you know, I've known Jace for 6-7 years, a really, really good friend of mine. And, you know, at this time, there's no real words I can say, but the fact that Jace, I'm with you, we're with you as a show. We send our love, condolences. We hope, obviously, truly the man now has the chance to rest in peace. I know it's not been an easy couple of weeks, but I just want to let you know, Jace, love you a lot, mate, and we're with you. And look, I'll be with you very, very soon. So that's what I want to say at the top of this show. Back to football, back to Tottenham. Do you know what? Been a difficult, as I've said, time at the moment to try and really understand just what's quite happening. Russ, I'm going to open up the show with you. Tottenham, we've now lost 3 Premier League games in a row at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the first time. 13 points dropped from losing positions. 5 straight games in the Premier League without a win. Tottenham were leading in all 5. That's a Premier League record. We haven't won a game since October. 4 defeats out of the last 5. And this latest one is a really poor second half performance, even with players out, where again, we failed to press home an early advantage and really like scoring after the break. Can you put your finger on just what is happening right now, Russ, with Tottenham?
I think we're looking at reality, really, of where we are. I mean, I can think of 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League. I'm sure the viewers and listeners can, who are better than Spurs in terms of personnel, in terms of getting results, and we don't need to mention who they are. And today it was a game literally of 2 halves, but the predominant problem is our inability to score goals, our lack of willingness to even have a shot on goal from outside the area, our lack of width. And even in the first half, Brennan Johnson, I don't want to pick out particular players, but the final ball just isn't good enough at the moment. And incidentally, even though it sticks in the throat, I think we have to give West Ham some credit for the way that they played in the second half. And make no mistake about it, they are not a great football team. Okay, they just knew that a low block was going to frustrate us, and we can't play against a low block from what I've been able to see. And, are we in crisis? Absolutely not. We're probably roughly about, I think, where we expect to be at this point in the season. We had such a brilliant start, rode our luck, but we are missing quality in key areas. We desperately need a striker in January. We know that. So for all the people who say, Harry Kane, we don't need him. Look, well, now we're beginning to see that we do need a striker. Not necessarily, obviously, Harry Kane. We need another centre-back. Van der Ven is the security at the back. Cutie, I thought, had a pretty good game tonight. And Porro, Udogie in the first half, the back pass was terrible. We'll come on to that later. But overall, I think that we're personnel short. Really strange substitutions. Rick, as you and I were communicating in the game, I don't get Oliver Skipp. Sorry, friends and family, and Oliver, if you're watching this, I just don't get what he brings to the team. And we looked a bit like headless chickens. Could have played all night in the second half and not scored a goal, apart from that brilliant chance for Richie, who really should have buried it, but he didn't. And goals, for me, are absolutely the issue at the moment. And we just cannot score. Because if we could, we'd have been 3-0 up at half-time. But we're good at letting them in, even if they're two jammy goals tonight. But, you know, a soft back pass puts you in trouble. But we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. So I really don't think this is a show of therapy tonight. I mean, you know, we throw that word around. I think we need to have a bit of reality and take stock of where we are. And it's some way away from where we want to be. That's how I see it.
You know what, TJ? Look, we've had the pleasure of having you on all different types of Last Word on Spurs shows. And, you know, you've always managed to find the right tone in those shows. I mean, Russ, mate, you do it so often and so eloquently well, week upon week, you're here with us as well. I mean, the reality is at the moment, CJ, is that we're just simply not clinical enough in that first half. Second half, for me, that was definitely up there, one of the most poorest halves that we've had this season. It's clear that we've got a lot of players missing, but we also don't really have good enough options to change games coming off the bench. And I'm not sitting here trying to defend Ange, because I'll be honest with you, some of the substitutions, I have to say, have been questionable, in my opinion, over this last 2 or 3 weeks. But, you know, we can't deny that we've not done enough. But you won't see goals scored like either of those that have been scored all season. And I think the concerning is, for many, although look at the fact of the points accumulated, it's 1 out of the last 15. How do you justify, TJ, if you can, this run that we're going for at the moment? Is it all plainly down to having those players missing at the moment for you?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me back on the show, Rick. It's lovely to be back and see with the chaps as well. Nice to see you, Sammy and Russ. Always a pleasure. First things first, right? We've started the show and even we were talking in the green room and Russ was saying that it's not going to be therapy today. It's going to be a dose of reality. And I think that that's accurate. And not to disagree with Russ, I completely concurred. However, the lovely message that you sent out to Jason at the top of the show, Rick, like that immediately actually made me feel so much better. We lost a game of football today that we shouldn't have lost. However, there's a gentleman, a dear friend of yours, whom you have so much love and respect, admiration and affection for, who lost his father. And you sent him a lovely message. And then all of a sudden, he was inundated with messages in the comments. Jason, thinking of you, love to you. I'm so sorry. It's my wife texting me. And so that's really important. And that's something that this club has always offered me, and fellow supporters of this club have always offered me, and we can offer that to each other. So I think that's really important as well. And now on to the game. I mean, the fact that we're throwing leads away and we've broken a record is obviously not a result or a statistic that we would like to be attributed to our club. But to Russ's point, this is where we are. We have to remind ourselves this is Ange's first season. You know, it's a brand new project, a completely different philosophy, a 180, if you like, philosophy from where we've been. And so we are going to fall apart, because when it works, and when it doesn't, it's catastrophically bad. You know, I had my dear friend JB, a friend of mine for 30 years, right? We went to school together. He lives here in LA as well. Came round to watch the game, Tottenham boy. I love him dearly. And he said, I don't remember watching games where the drop off is quite so dramatic, even being, you know, a Tottenham fan. And so this is symptomatic of what this new project is. The Chelsea game was the most incident-filled game of football I've ever seen. Today was so entirely dominant. Again, to Russ's point, and no disrespect to the West Ham fans out there. And of course, I'd love to be coming away from their stadium having gotten hammered for 85 minutes and coming away with 3 points. I'd be, jigging down Seven Sisters. I'd be absolutely having a joyful old time. However, they were absolutely dominated today by a far, far superior team. And then 2 absolute freak goals wins them the game. So I'm as irritated and as saddened. When you feel a bit sick, after a Tottenham game, I felt a bit sick today after that result. However, the combination of being on the show, the combination of the support, the combination of your lovely words, Rick, and then also just applying a little pragmatism to Russ's point, a dose of reality. We're a brand new project. The substitutions were a little bizarre, but who do we play? There's still so many players at the club that should not be at the club. If the last couple of seasons have taught us anything about professional football, it's really hard to sell players that you don't want. And then I'll let Sammy come in and wax lyrical, as I know he will.
You know what, TJ, you put it so eloquently there. And the fact of the matter is that, bringing Sam in here, it's a really difficult night for Tottenham. We attacked but looked very toothless at times in front of goal. I mean, the intent was there to secure the win. But in the second half, it just didn't feel like it was there in terms of energy, belief. I just don't know what has happened to Tottenham just in regards to them trying to play a full sustainable 90 minutes. And I think the thing with Ange is, no disrespect, I just wonder whether, because of the way Spurs are trying to play, whether it can be sustainable, the style of play, for a 90 minutes with this particular 11, 12, 13 that we've got. I think we rely solely so hard on the likes of course, Maddison and, of course, Van der Ven, that when you don't have those key players there, you are going to inevitably struggle. But what I must suggest is that, look, in the past, when Spurs have thrown away leads and not seen out games, that's been labelled squarely at the managers, the likes of Mourinho and Conte. But I think from what we are seeing, Sam, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is clearly an attacking issue, because had Tottenham taken their chances against Aston Villa and against West Ham in that first half alone, Spurs would have definitely been getting out with 6 points. So how do you, if you can, Sam, sum up the performance this evening? I'll just let TJ know that he's frozen so he can come back in the background there, just so he's aware.
I thought he was just looking that sexy, and that's his pose. He just stays that way.
How do you, Sam?
Rick, I'm going to unload it, actually, to be fair. But just before I do, I mean, 3 things I want to say. Firstly, TJ nailed it there with the introduction. What you said about Jason's father actually puts so much into perspective. It really does. I mean, I know how passionate we are about football, but we're all human beings. And at the end of the day, the one thing that Tottenham has, I think we have a family, and it's very close to my heart, losing my father myself. I'm all the love to Jason. Secondly, what I want to say is I just want to do a shout out to George and Arthur, who I love very much. And I just want to send them all the love in the world. And I'll do that at the beginning of every show now. Hopefully they get the message and they can watch the podcasts back or YouTube channels back and wonder what the hell the mum was doing with a nut job like me coming on a cast like this at this time of night. But and thirdly, do not ever put me on a show again with TJ Ramini. I keep saying this every time. Next to a Hollywood actor, I feel well. And I feel like I look good every single time. And then you put me next to this geezer. Right, so I'm going to unload now. Right, the first half was not the issue at all. And do you know what? Postecoglou, has he been found out? It's a question, because you know what? After the Chelsea game, cracks happened. And I'll tell you why. Because he came out after the Chelsea game and he justified his give all, die or nothing attitude to the High Line. And you know what? It's really risky to talk in press conferences about your managerial techniques, even though it's obvious to see to the fan on the sideline. And, I love it. I mean, I'll be dead straight with you. I absolutely love it. If some 6'9" skinhead is beating the hell out of me, I'm still going to give him 2 black eyes on the way down. I will fight. I'll give everything. I will not go down without a fight. And I like his attitude in order to win. However, since that Chelsea game, things have changed, and a lot of clubs are seeing that we are getting the players at the back forward, and maybe that's a problem. Maybe it is. I'll be dead straight with you. I think one of the biggest problems is, and I never like to pin it on one player as being the heartbeat of a club, but I've always said it. We had Modric, we had Eriksen, we got Maddison, and Maddison was an absolute game changer and a playmaker for Tottenham Hotspur. He was that pivotal that we didn't take him for granted. You look at the initial start to the season and the influence that Maddison had on the squad, and it was unprecedented. And I think that heartbeat, that in the center, that playmaker is massively missing. And when he came in, we almost forgot about Bentancur, who is again an unbelievable attribute to Tottenham Hotspur. But he came in and made that difference. Now, I'm not pinning it on James Maddison, but that's hugely made a difference. But I have to say, the second half tonight wasn't good enough at all. Was it two lucky goals by West Ham? I think Bowen had a great game. I think West Ham had a really good press in the second half. I hate West Ham. Terribly sorry for whoever was putting Amazon there. No problem. Send me a number. I'll come down for a straightener. But the bottom line is, I don't like West Ham United. And they played really well in the second half, right? So, and we were found out from that with our high line. So Tottenham weren't good enough in the second half. The reoccurring theme is the high line is very much being found out by clubs that know how to deal with it. Manchester City, I messaged you, Rick, at half-time, right? I messaged you, yeah? And I said, we're dominating this game. This is really worrying. Like that, instead of saying, this is amazing, isn't it? How good are we playing? I said, this is really worrying. And this is the problem for a Tottenham fan, right? Because we're used to the fact that when we're dominating a game and we're looking really good and we've got the possession, that we don't win it. And it's actually, I'd love to see the stats on that over the last 10 years, whoever can collaborate that, because the fact of the matter is the stats of this season are we've been winning. How many games is it that we've been winning in the first half, and then or scored first?
We've gone ahead, like I say. It's 13 points dropped from losing positions.
Oh wow! So 1 out of 15. Have we won
1 point out of the last 15?
You see that it's shocking, but also Ange Postecoglou is settling in. What I want to say about Ange Postecoglou is this: he has a philosophy and he has a style. Sorry to rant on, gentlemen. I was always going to explode on my first part of this, right? Okay, so he's got a philosophy and he's got an agenda. And do you know what? Alan Shearer nailed it. If you were watching Amazon and he, you heard the commentary from him, it was mustard what he said, because he said, it's one thing having a philosophy and a plan and a strategy, but it's another thing with the players adopting it. And that is huge because, I think the players have been incredibly good. But regardless, I mean, Russ said it there. He nailed it at the beginning and said, I think we're exactly where we should expect to be. And do you know what? No truer statement will be said on this show other than that, because do you know what? That the manager has just started. The players are just adopting this Ange Postecoglou philosophy, which is completely different to what they've had. We are a sit back when we're losing team. And, a rollover team. This isn't a rollover Tottenham Hotspur. These players are willing to give everything for Big Ange. And do you know what? I'm really happy to see that, but improvements need to be made, Rick.
They do. Russ, we have just heard from Ange Postecoglou out the post-match press conference, and he says he is sick of hearing about us playing good football. He went on to say, we just lack conviction in our shooting. It's not to do with tiredness. People say we're playing good football, but we're not showing any real conviction in the way we're playing. People say we're playing nice stuff, but that's not what I'm about. I want to win. We're right at the beginning of what we're trying to do, and this only gives me further fuel. Would you take away, Russ, from the opening line there of Ange's presser? Very, very strong. Doesn't seem happy. Let's unmute you, Russ, to bring you back in if you can from your end. Let's go and we'll have to unmute Russ.
There we go. Sorry, mate. I was turning because my phone was beeping. It wasn't my wife. She's in bed at this hour. Not like yours, TJ.
I wish we all. Can I just say on the back of that, Duffy? I wish we all was.
Yes.
2:45 in the afternoon over here, of course. If she wasn't, I'd be concerned.
He's got 6 hours to try and recover from this. We've got about an hour.
Yeah.
I'll let you crack on, Russ.
To answer your question, I mean, Ange is no fool. He knew that it was almost a job to nothing to come to our football club after the absolute detritus over the last few years that we've gone through, but we've got a lovely stadium. And so he's thought it through. He believes in himself. We've seen what he can do. The players believe in it. But he also knows, and he would never have said it in public, I'm sure, that there's a limitation what this bunch of players can do. And I think that it's a very strong message to the recruitment team and, by definition, the chairman. There's some new bodies are needed. And, you know, as was said earlier by TJ, trying to offload some of the players who really shouldn't be at the club anymore. They've run their race is a very difficult thing to do. But he will have a very big plan that slowly but surely over the next few months we're going to get to see. But at the moment it isn't ideal. And I think he's frustrated. He's absolutely right. We can't score goals and we don't have the conviction around the 18-yard box that we should have. But I maintain, and I said it the last time I was on, and I'm not a dreamer, believe you me. I suppose some people think I'm quite negative occasionally. This time next season, we will be a very, very dangerous football team in the Premier League and beyond. It's the way it's going to be. But we mustn't think that, you know, Father Christmas is going to be late. And in January, here they come, 3 brilliant players coming straight into the squad. We might be lucky and get one because you don't get bargains in January. We're going to have to wait till the summer. But, you know, he's, from what you've said that he said, Rick, I think he's frustrated, but he knows what the problem is. His job is to fix it.
Amen. 100%. I mean, just to further on that, TJ, coming over to you, Anne just said it's another game where we've dominated the game of football. We haven't taken advantage. I think we're poor in both areas with our finishing, and also both goals we conceded were terrible. You know, we've come on this point already, the fact that how poor the goals were to concede and the manner of them. You know, it just feel like typical Tottenham goals to concede. I mean, can you relate to Andrew with his post-match thoughts so far on the game?
Yes, and I think we all can. So I am a pretty glass half full sort of person. And I know people are, you know, calling out for some therapy, and, you know, some of that is tongue in cheek, but some of it's probably, you know, really quite serious. Here's the thing, guys, is that we could be in so much of a worse position than we're in now, because we went 10 games unbeaten and we were top of the table and everyone was all about Ange, and we're all still about Ange, right? And he has been, as I said in the last episode, an absolute revelation and a revolutionary and a completely transformative manager, personality, style, philosophy from the last 3 managers that we've had at the club. And so for the last, you know, 6 or 7 years, beautiful dog, Sammy. Mine is asleep, snoring, I hope not too loudly at my feet, upsetting the viewers back home who are thinking perhaps they should also be snoring at this late hour. We could be in a really terrible position. Like if we hadn't have started so well, you know, and I'll open this up to all of you guys and, you know, people on the comments and stuff. Like if we were kind of in like 12th or 13th, which a lot of new ventures, you know, could be, I don't think anyone's playing particularly brilliantly this season, right? So if we were kind of languishing around mid-table, are people saying Ange has got to go? You know, are we having those kind of conversations? And so to be the glass is half full person, but I do mean it. It is sincere. To Russ's point, we're nowhere near a crisis. We have major issues that we have to plug. You know, with the dike is spilling water all over the place. We need to stick our fingers and toes into them. But we've just started to do that. These holes and these cracks in our dam have been appearing, widening and extending and multiplying for years. Like this club has been in trouble for a long time. And so where we are now is still a really positive place. We've brought in fantastic new players. And some of our older players we've all talked on this show. I remember being on a show with Sammy where we talked about Lo Celso, like, when's he going to come good, and like how frustrating he was. And then all of a sudden he looks like a player. Of course you shouldn't be subbing him off and bringing on Oliver Skipp, who isn't a Premier League player. He just isn't. Lovely boy, Tottenham through and through, all that. He's not a Premier League player. There's no shame in that. If we watch the Wrexham show, I'm sure we do, right? It's a fun show. And actually, Humphrey is a friend of mine. I've played football with Humphrey 100 times. Like, you know, I know him well. So if you look at the guys who play for Wrexham, which is a non-league football club, how good are they? Like, they're so good. And so there's no shame to not be a Premier League player. But he just isn't. And so where we are right now, to Russ's point, to Sammy's point, to your point, Rick, is probably where we deserve to be. And it could be a hell of a lot worse.
You know, it is really, really tricky. I mean, Sam bringing you in, you know, the worrying thing is, and I think you picked up on this, Sam, is that we don't really look like scoring at times. And, you know, we haven't, to some degree, all night in that game. And this is where I think you do feel that Harry Kane departure most, because the amount of times that he'd bail us out in this situation would be absolutely ridiculous. Are you still confident, Sam, that we've got enough to try and get ourselves by it? Because we've got a number of games still to come in December until that January window opens. Have we got enough to get by and still maintain a position? Because a win tonight, we go level on points with City. We go 3 clear of Newcastle. We're in a fairly good position, but we'll come on to Newcastle shortly. The worrying thing is now is that I do worry that the longer this goes on now, the fact that it's now 5 games without a win, it's 3 home games in a row that we've suffered defeat. They're the first time at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. How much, Sam, does that start psychologically playing on the player's mind? Because, I mean, Ange in that press conference after the game, he's clearly wound up. Do you worry, Sam, that there's almost concerning elements all this psychologically that Spurs are going through a really difficult period that they may not find it easy to come out of?
No, I mean, Russ said at the beginning of the show again, and this is why I sometimes wonder why you want me on here, because everybody else always pinpoints it perfectly. But Russ said at the beginning of the show, that is this crisis point? Absolutely not, and it's not. But are we beating Newcastle United? No, with that current performance tonight, no, we're definitely not. And you know, I keep going back to it. I think he's got it right, Ange. It's just the players that need to do it. I mean, the difficulty is if you go into the casino and you want to ride the high line. So if you want to go big, there's a massive potential chance you're going to win big. Okay, but if you go in to a casino and want to play big, but you play loose, then there's a massive chance you're going to lose everything. And that's his philosophy. And he's going to stick by that. So this is his game. What he's trying to do is find the chess pieces and not just the pawns. He needs the bishops and he needs the kings and the queens in order to execute his checkmate. And he hasn't got that at the moment. What he's doing is he's moving his pawn pieces around the table and he's trying to make it work. And there's a lot of the key players, the bishops, so to speak, that can move across the field are out. And that's the way that he's got to look at it, because this is a game of tacticians, and that's exactly what Ange Postecoglou is. His philosophy clearly works. He's a proven winner. And you know what? I said it at the beginning of the show. He doesn't go down without a fight. I back it. I love that. I would rather see Tottenham Hotspur giving absolutely everything than not. The problem you've got is are the key players that are missing from it. Oliver Skipp, I just want to touch on that from what you were saying. I was an advocate of Oliver Skipp. Is he a Premiership player? I think he is. I just don't think he fits into Tottenham Hotspur. I think it's pretty harsh on him to say that he isn't a Premiership player. And I think he's got what it takes. But, you know, he was introduced slowly. He was given some chances and made those happen. I think given some real game time at a club like Everton or Luton, he would be an incredible player. And that's absolutely no disrespect to Toffees or Luton fans. I just think that Oliver Skipp as a mainframe player introduced to the squad, he seems to have some leadership and he's a really good player, but he doesn't fit into a world-class Tottenham Hotspur. And that's a massive shame. But again, it's all about the missing pieces. I think I've seen a few comments saying Basuma and Johnson had a bad game. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to argue that. I mean, like Basuma, he's turned before he shot, and you've got to remember he's shooting that ball on his left foot in the rain.
But Sam, is it fair for me to say, let you come back in on this? He's not the same Basuma that we saw in those first 5-6 games where he was quite literally running the show, running it. Yeah. And you can argue that maybe not having Madison.
There's no Madison in front of it, right?
I'll argue it, Rick. Yeah. I will argue it because I'll tell you now, right? A football team is like a watch, like a Swiss watch, right? And if you take a cog out of it, the watch doesn't turn, no matter how expensive the watch is and how expensive and good all the other Swiss pieces of it are. And you know what? He is a class, Basuma, but there are missing pieces in Tottenham at the moment that are meaning people are in different positions. They're trying to overperform. I don't think Basuma and Johnson had a bad game, and I'm sorry to be controversial. I actually think it's going to be a regular thing to start seeing Johnson start in that position. He's so underrated, and if he would have put a couple of those opportunities away tonight, we'd all be having a different conversation. And it would be a completely different podcast, and everyone would be going, "Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, Johnson, he was always underrated. He needs the game time." I mean, at the moment, we're dealing with what we've got, and can you imagine the manager's dilemma as well when he's looking at, at the start of the season, Rick? I remember coming on this show and going, "Oh my God, we've got depth. We've actually got some depth. We've got people on the bench that I'd bring on, and the squad's looking fantastic." And all of a sudden, we're looking a little bit bleak, and it's the way it is. But I don't think, and again, to echo Russ's comments at the beginning of the show, I do not think that it's crisis time with Tottenham. Am I pissed off? Massively, especially losing to West Ham. Jesus Christ, I'm fuming. But, and 1 point out of 15, it is something to worry about. However, there were people talking about Manchester United being in relegation for 2 months ago, and they're on the same points as us, and they're winning 2-1 against Chelsea last night, and all of a sudden they're having a great season. The bottom line is we're having a stinker of a season. The injuries are affecting us, but I do not think it's crisis at this time. I've got to be dead straight with you. Usually, at this stage, I will start questioning the manager's intentions and game plan and the likes of, regardless to whether it be in world-class Jose Mourinho or world-class Antonio Conte. But in Ange we trust at the moment. I'm happy to see this type of football going on. And, I want to see more of this football. What I want to see are the players that are supposed to be playing it, like James Maddison. Yes. Cristian Romero, right, came back tonight. And before you know it, he's sticking it in. And by the way, Cristian Romero, I just want to say one thing about him. If you can put a pinpoint on a player to sum up a player, he's had 4 goals and 4 red cards. I mean, that you just cannot. That sums the guy up totally in terms of what a loose cannon he is, and that. But I'm a massive fan of his. But you're looking at players that we were talking about 2 seasons ago and writing them off, like Giovanni Lo Celso, and do you know, he had a good game against Manchester City, but he's not made for the squad. And, what would we be doing if Dembele was still playing in the squad? And, it's just, at the moment, the missing pieces are out of the picture, and it's really frustrating. But, I just feel like the improvements are to come when the players are reintroduced. You watch, as soon as James Maddison's back, you reintroduce James Maddison, Bentancur, I think Richarlison. I'm starting to get really edgy about Richie at the moment, because he's one of these, he's like a lovable rogue that you want in the squad. Like, everybody's rooting for him to do well. But it's just not happening for him at Tottenham. It's not happening.
I hear you, Sam. I think the issue that we've got, though, is that we obviously there's a willingness for these players to come back, but we've got to deal with the reality that we haven't got these players right now. And we've got to find now a way in which we do adjust our style to win games. Now, he's just spoken to Match of the Day, and he said, look, if you dominate a game of football, you have to turn it into something meaningful. And we didn't. We let that conviction, our soft chances that we didn't take, and conceded really, really 2 soft goals. It was completely self-inflicted. We had plenty of chances, probably our best ones in the second half. Credit to West Ham, they're always going to hang in there. You always want to be in a position where if you dominate games of football, you have to turn them into wins. We didn't do that, and it's not the first time. We let ourselves down when we should have won these games comfortably. The challenges are there. It is not a good feeling to feel sorry for ourselves. We still have a long way to go as a team, and that
Rick's frozen.
to be punished, you. We are nowhere near where we need to be. And on this point, Russ, I mean, I said this to you actually when we were talking beforehand during the game. I just wonder, how much do we question the game management of Ange? Because I think at the start of the season, for me, he couldn't do anything wrong in terms of tactically and substitution-wise. And I just feel these last couple of weeks that some of the subs for me just haven't really sat right. The Lo Celso one, I get we got Newcastle on the weekend, but for me, the priority is West Ham. Beat West Ham and then worry about Lo Celso. Lo Celso is the only real creative outlet you've got on that pitch. Yes, you've got Kulusevski. Yes, you've got Brennan Johnson. But theoretically, the chances are going to come from Lo Celso in that midfield and he goes off. So I have to ask the question, do we hold Ange responsible at all when it comes to substitutions? Or is Ange free of that based on the fact that he just doesn't have the players able to work the system that he wants to play in?
No, he's the manager of our club, and the decisions that he makes on the pitch and with the players in the formations and the way we play is down to him, I think. And I agree, Rick. I mean, we were quite incredulous, weren't we, that Lo Celso came off. He needs as many minutes as he can get in a Tottenham shirt in the Premier League. And after what he did at City, I just found it a bit weird. Sonny, I think, came off, although he was anonymous tonight, really, wasn't he, if we're honest. He looked as though he was injured. He was limping a little bit, so I suppose we've got to keep our fingers crossed for that. I am in the Oliver Skip sort of camp that I don't quite think that he would get in our team or anywhere near it if we were playing a little bit better and had some better players and what have you. But Oliver can only do what he's asked to do by the manager. And I suppose he did that. Somebody said they saw him pass the ball forward. I didn't. I saw him go sideways and backwards, but I could be wrong. But the substitutions, I mean, Højbjerg going off, I thought in the first half he was excellent. Then he comes out for the second half. First three touches of the ball, two of them, he gives it away. He didn't even look like doing that in the first half. And I'm wondering what is going on in their heads. We were sloppy. I WhatsApp you, didn't I, Rick? I said, sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. And that was before West Ham had even got an equaliser. So maybe he knows more about Højbjerg, obviously, than I do. We do, and all our viewers and listeners do. But I do agree that some of the substitutes seem a little bit.
Højbjerg, Russ, gives absolutely everything when he's on.
Yeah, I agree.
He gives absolutely everything when he's on. Is he ideal? Is he 110% a Tottenham Hotspur key starting player? No. But does he give 110% when he's on? Yeah, he does.
Yes,
so the options that he's got, I'd bring him on. I'd have him on the pitch. Do you know, in the circumstances, I'd have him on.
Right now, 100%. Totally agree with you. So I couldn't quite understand why he went off when he did. But, I'm not Ange, am I? So somebody should ask him. Rick, maybe we'll get a chance to talk to him in the near future.
Hopefully we will. Sonny, if I can come around to you, TJ, he's been speaking after the game. He said, look, deserve better or not means nothing. We lost the game. It's unacceptable. You are losing that game, I think, is unacceptable. As a player, we should take the... You got me right, guys. Sorry about that.
Sorry, mate. You're in and out, so you're gonna have to ask me that.
You might have to reboot.
Yeah, reboot, Ricky. Reboot, mate.
And we'll carry on talking about Sonny until you're back.
Quite sunny, right? I mean, to be honest, I think this evening, and again, we're all aware of this. Everybody on the panel, and we have a very knowledgeable audience as well, listening and watching. Is that it didn't really matter who was in front of us tonight because we beat ourselves. We created so many opportunities. Regarding Biss, regarding Johnson, Skip, Højbjerg, all the rest of it. I mean, I kind of made my point about Skip. And I hear what Sammy's saying. maybe he is a Premier League player. Maybe he can go and play at Luton until they get relegated. Same with Everton until they get relegated. Can he get... It doesn't really matter, to be honest. Nice boy. You know, he's not what we need. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, but there's 4 or 5 players like that, TJ.
Yeah,
That's the issue that the manager's got. That's the problem.
100%. I mean, listen, we've got far bigger problems.
You can only, a builder can only give you a certain amount of tools and bricks and cement and everything to build a perfect house. Do you know what I mean? And the manager's using what he's got with the best foundations. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, you know, and Ange is trying to build a bespoke house that has very particular angles and nooks and crannies and features and all the rest of it. And if he's looking at his tool bag, I just don't have that. No matter how, you know, efficiently he rummages through, I just don't have it. But he's not a huge problem. Like you said, there's 5 or 6 players at the club who aren't up to snuff, especially in the current system. And we've been trying to get rid of them for ages, and we can't get rid of them. But as far as Sonny's comments go, and I think I caught most of what you were saying, Rick, it just didn't matter who we played tonight, because again, we've beaten ourselves. We were so dominant, man. We were so, and again, no disrespect to the West Ham fans, not like Sammy, like, am I a West Ham fan? No, of course I'm not. You know, but we were just so wasteful, so profligate, and like not just shooting. How many times did we see that ball just put over the top or put straight down Fabianski's throat? Delivery into the box was absolutely appalling tonight from Kulu and from Johnson. Like, just so poor. You can't be your first man. All these floated passes into the box. This is the Premier League. You just can't get away. You can't get away with that. You can't get away with that in the Wrexham games. You know, you can't float balls into the box. Central defenders are going to head those out. A goalkeeper's going to come along and claim them. The standard is too high, and so that really has to be addressed. What is worrying to me, and Russ was alluding to this, is that there seems to be a fragility that's creeping into this squad. That is worrying, because if you do become the team who's been in winning positions more than any other team in the Premier League and then lose them, that's a psychological issue which can spread like wildfire. Mentality is really, really important. I've said it a million times on this podcast, and, you know, not that there's anything particularly profound about my points of view on this sport. These are all very well documented. We've all said them a million times. But confidence is absolutely pivotal at this level. They all possess the physical attributes. The mental attributes are a completely different element of the game, and absolutely critical. So if we come from that team who did ride our luck in those first 10 games and come out with a victory, the Sheffield United game, things like that, like, ooh, it looked a bit dodgy and just kind of came out with a victory. Well, now that those victories have disappeared, all but disappeared. And so there needs to be a mental switch that we still have the goods to deliver 3 points. And we prove that time and time again with the amount of chances that we create. Some of those chances are going to have to end up in the back of the net. And again, we were a team that was scoring from everywhere. Our defenders were scoring, our midfielders were scoring, and our attackers were scoring, bar Richie, of course. That's a whole separate conversation. But we need to start creating those chances and converting those chances, not just for results, but for the mentality to switch. That, yes, we have been struck by an injury. That is a crisis, like the injury crisis. I mean, if that's Perisic putting those balls into the box, 70-80% of those are going to hit their desired target. Kulu just had a bad game tonight, but
also Porro's accuracy and his crosses is absolutely mustard. We just need every. There's no absolutely nothing wrong with Pedro Porro's game either.
Porro's superb.
Positives to take
Porro
from this.
Was excellent today, and again, he needs to score. Like, again, he's got that in his locker, right? We've seen him lace that ball, and he keeps hitting the bar all the time. Very annoying. So we need to start converting those opportunities, and we need to get our wide players more efficient and effective at whipping balls into the box that we have an opportunity. You know, that Kurt Zuma one that clanged off the crossbar was very similar to the Joel Matip own goal that he scored when we pinched that victory against them. So what does concern me is that there's a mentality that's creeping through Tottenham where they're telling themselves right now, we don't have enough to win games. And that's problematic, because we're beating ourselves right now, no matter who the opponents are.
No, I don't want to add insult to injury, but there is some news coming through from Sunmo Lee, friend of Last Week on Spurs, obviously very well established, credible Korean journalist, that the question was asked, and how is Sonny after coming off? He went, I don't know, not sure. Obviously not what we want to hear, given the fact Spurs are currently going through a real drought of scoring a lot of goals, and Son is really the only recognised forward we've got at the moment. And you look at Richarlison's miss, we'll come on to it in the second half. You feel Son is really, really pivotal to try and keep fit. So it's a worry there. But we are going to do, for all of our sakes, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We've got a good 2,500 of you watching us live here. Again, thank you so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. Sorry it's under such difficult circumstances. We're joined by the wonderful Russ Williams, the brilliant TJ Ramini, and the super Sammy Powell on this Last Word on Spurs. Look, I mean, it's difficult. You know, again, when we do these shows straight after games and we're going through the run that we're on right now, Sam has eloquently said on a number of occasions, you know, trust Ange, have faith in Ange. And look, Ange has said consistently along, we are going to go through difficult periods, and it's how we try and address and come out of them in terms of what will be key. And it is hard. Like, it is really, really hard to try and feel and keep faith when, you know, we are breaking these unwarranted records left, right, and centre. But we know we're decimated in certain areas. I have to say this, there really needs to be some help for the manager in the January transfer window. We know Tottenham, they're renowned for leaving their business late. And when you look at the previous two last January transfer windows, Pedro Porro on the last day of the January window previously. Before that, Kulusevski and Bentancur on the very, very last day of the January transfer window. Tottenham simply have to act early for Ange Postecoglou. Otherwise, you have to really question what the ambition is here. Because quite frankly, Tottenham have, at one point in the season, got themselves into a position where they were tremendously progressing right near the top of the league, arguably, you know, in a position where who knows what could have been achieved this season. I think, look, as Russ has said, the reality is now set in that we know there was 11, 12, 13 players that ultimately had to be kept fit week upon week. And without those players, when you look at the depth, the drop-off, it is alarming at the level of drop-off that we've got. And again, that represents itself, Sam, kind of as you, when you look at the team here. Tottenham's team going into the game for this one, which we'll bring up here for our viewing audience here. You know, Tottenham made 2 changes against West Ham United. Return, obviously, of Romero from suspension. Finally brought a natural centre-half into the side with Ben Davies getting a spot alongside him. We know Eric Dyer remained out, while Spurs boss said Pat Matasar was likely to return for the weekend. Again, you look at that midfield for Tottenham. Højbjerg came in for Brian Hill. Dejan Kulusevski was pushed further forward. Højbjerg earned the start after helping change the match at the Etihad. Giovanni Lo Celso, he made a 3rd start in a row, having scored in both the previous games. And Richarlison, obviously, also back on the bench ahead of this one. That team read Vicario, Porro, Romero, Davis, Udogie, Højbjerg, Basuma, Lo Celso, Kulusevski, Son Johnson, with a bench of Forster, Dorrington, Emerson, Skip Sarr, Donnelly, Hill, Richarlison, Veliz. I think he said to me before the game, Sam, that was roughly team-wise what you was expecting, right?
Yeah, what I was expecting, but you take 2 players out of that and put Van der Ven and Maddison in it, and it's a sealed deal, in my opinion. That's the bottom line. And you know, people are talking about Sonny going missing before the second half, and Son not having a great game. Like, I mean, that is a fair weather comment. Like, Son, I had a text message that Son was struggling at half time anyway. That was somebody who I know in the Premier League who messaged me, the very, very good source, and apparently he is injured and not good. But do you know what? But maybe he's injured from a bad back from carrying the rest of the squad. Are we forgetting what he did against Manchester City? We're forgetting what he's been doing all season since Harry Kane's gone. I mean, I'm not being funny. Stop with these fair weather comments of people going missing. I think, do you know what? I'm pissed off. I think I've said that on every time you've let me in on the show, Rick. I am, but I'm actually not that. I'm feeling massively positive about Tottenham now. Big Angie's there, and I just feel like I want him to get the missing. I really do. Like, you know, we had these championship managers with all the trophies behind them, and I wouldn't if you wanted me to swap any of them now in a deal or no deal box for Ange Postecoglou, I wouldn't trade you. So I just want the manager that's running the team to have the players that he needs to get the job done. And players like Sonny and, even Johnson, everyone slating him for not having a good game. Watch it back. Seriously, like, it's an uber talented players that are keeping this team together at the moment to make sure that we're not going 2-0 down in the first half. There's massive positivity going on at the moment.
I hear you, Sam. I mean, the hard thing is, though, I think it is difficult when you have not won in the last 5 games and Spurs have not won since October. I think the concern is that, again, the elements are there that, suddenly as we look at that league, there are, as you see now, gaps forming. And the problem with Tottenham is, I hear you, Sam. I agree that when Spurs do get Maddison and Van de Ven back, they will be a totally different team. But the problem is, Sam, that until we get those players back, we are left with what we're left with. And ultimately, the concern is, how many more games are we going to fall behind like this, where, quite frankly, we haven't got the mentality, like TJ touched upon there, to try and get ourselves back up. Now, and
get it, but again, we're in that position. We're in that position. If you're in a car that is slower than other cars, but you're still in the race, you're still going to put your foot full on the throttle, aren't you? Because you're in it.
You are, Sam. But the
change.
No, I hear you. But the problem we've got at the moment is, though, I think the team that we had out there tonight, in my opinion, was good enough to beat West Ham United.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
We showed that for 80 minutes.
And I think, and that is the frustration that even against Aston Villa, with you'd say again, a handful of players that aren't maybe as good as Villa, we took Villa so close to the brink and didn't get a point. And I think this is the worry for many, many fans that are looking in now, that look, we're not just being negative for the sake of being. I'm not being negative for the sake of being negative. I am concerned because when you've gone 5 games without a win, you haven't won since October. TJ's right what he says about the mentality, and you add that together and you look at the case of what Spurs have got to come. They've got some tricky fixtures to come, Tottenham. Yeah. Newcastle at the weekend won't be easy. And Ange said, coming over to you, Russ, if I can, that this isn't about playing good football. It's about us winning games of football. That's what I've said from the start. I set teams up to win games, and at 1-0 at half-time was not a good performance from us. A good performance would have been 3-0 or 4-0, as was the case against Villa. And when you don't and give up goals, you shouldn't, like today, then say you got what you deserve. Like I said earlier, it's not just about having that conviction in front of goal to kill teams off. If we aren't creating the chances, if we're out there and on our feet, you could factor into those things. But I don't see that, because all our chances, especially in the first half, have nothing to do with fatigue. It's to do with lacking conviction. At the moment, we're just going through this spell where we're playing so-called good football, but I don't see that. All I see is us really not showing any real clear conviction in what we're doing. It's almost like we're thinking the ball will go into the net by itself, but it won't. You need to have that determination to do that. And you need to have that determination to keep the ball out of your net at the other end. Look, he's very strong there. He's very, very strong in what he says. And I can't disagree with anything he's saying. I really can't, Russ.
No, obviously he makes a lot of good points. I think he's just finally realising he's the manager of Tottenham Hotspur, and some of the
poor bloke, absolutely.
That's it, right? Issues are quite ingrained in some of those players and in the very DNA of the club, I think. And it's his job to kind of exercise it out in the way that he can, with new personnel, saying goodbye to people over and over again, telling these players what he wants. I mean, it was exacerbated tonight. Clive Tilsley on commentary on Amazon with Alan Shearer, about half an hour into the game, he said some of this passing is PlayStation stuff. It was absolutely brilliant ball movement with very little end product apart from Cutie's goal. And Sam, I have to take a little bit of issue with you over Brennan Johnson. Talented player, yes. But on the evidence that what I've seen in a Spurs shirt, he's a little bit lightweight physically, and his final ball is not what it needs to be. That's not to say that he isn't going to be absolutely brilliant for us. But at the moment, for me, he's got to keep playing.
So did he have a bad game? So do you think he had a bad game?
I never said he had a bad game.
No, I know, but that's what I'm arguing. That's what I'm arguing.
The first half
he's had a bad game.
Was very poor.
Sorry? People are saying he's had a bad game, Brendan Johnson.
They're entitled to an opinion, Sammy, aren't they? If they think he's had a bad game, they do. It's as simple as that.
I do, yeah. But I'm just disagreeing with it.
Yeah.
But Sam, I think we've got to, the fact is on this point, and Russ, I'll let you come back in on this here. The reality is that, in your opinion, Sam, you feel the players haven't had a bad game. But in my opinion, the players that are on that pitch, for me, are good enough to beat West Ham. So you look at these players, in my opinion, they could have performed better. We've just lost at home to West Ham United. We've had a whole host of chances that we haven't taken. So I'll be honest with you, I can't buy the fact that these players have played well. For me, playing well is when you're in a position to score, you score. And that is the reality of it. That's how I feel about it. And Russ, I'll let you come back in on this because, again, it's all very well the players, some of them playing a 6, 7 out of 10. You've got to do more than that in the Premier League. We know, Russ, it's the most unforgiving league in the world. That if you don't take your chances, as that West Ham United second half showed you, you will get punished. Same as Aston Villa. That ultimately don't take your chances. As we were talking at half time, Sam, on this, me and you, rushing to get punished. And exactly what happened to Tottenham, right, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, Aston Villa, Unai Emery, we know what happened to at Arsenal with him, but we know what he's done in Europe. He's a very, very experienced football man. He's a very, very good manager. Those Villa players have run through brick walls for him, a bit like, hopefully, our players will learn to do even more and more and more for Ange. Tonight, David Moyes, hugely experienced football manager, saw his team absolutely, apart from the goal tally, annihilated, almost embarrassed in the first half. And, I don't care about West Ham. To me, they're like Burnley or Bournemouth. They're not a big London derby to me.
Totally agree.
Other people who support our club feel very passionately. It's West Ham, it's a massive game. It's not to me. I don't like losing to them. But he's a clever manager. He's looked at the way Ange is playing football in the Premier League, and he's got more experience. And a lot of his players have been in the Premier League a lot longer than some of our players. And so they've said, well, hang on a minute, lads. We know what to do. And guess what? It worked. Couple of jammy goals, but they got 3 points. And it's not a coincidence.
No. And on that point, Russ, David Moyes actually after the game said that Tottenham are the best side West Ham have faced so far this season. He also said at half-time, only being 1 down was a great score for his side. So almost in recognition to that point you're saying there, that with Moyes' experience, and again, when you look at his record in the Premier League, he has won, I believe, the third most amount of games behind Fergie, and you have to forgive me, behind, I believe, Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola, one of the two. May have been Wenger, to be fair. But this guy knows how to win, knows how to get results. And I think the point that, Sam, you're right, not everyone had a bad game there during that 95 and a bit minutes. But the reality is that if you want to be consistent in the Premier League week in, week out, you've got to be dropping 7, 8, 9s out of 10. You can't be dropping 5 or 6.
I'm not saying everyone's good enough. I'm just saying in terms of what we had, we didn't have a bad game, and certain players don't deserve the grief that they're getting. And also, I'm just defending the fact that this what are people calling it? Tiki-taka football, but this one-touch football that we played in the first half was a little bit showboaty. Love what Russ touched on about 30 minutes in, and the commentators were saying it was about like playing a PlayStation as he pressing the X button in his pocket or whatever. And I loved that because it was literally just like that, pass. But it was good. I mean, like if that results in goals, I'm not just honestly, Rick. I'm not just
no. I agree, Sam. Sam, like you've said there, that's the problem. The problem is that you mentioned it there, that half an hour mark, we're playing some beautiful football, but all of that gets completely forgotten because the result, unfortunately, overrides everything in the game. And, this is the thing that when you look at the game as a whole, it's really frustrating because, TJ, we had the perfect start. Spurs actually started so well. They had a penalty appeal in the first minute that VAR looked at it, they turned it down. We had a funny moment with Højbjerg with a huge air kick, ended up on his arse. But Romero did give Tottenham the perfect start to the game. Looping header into the far corner. It's remarkable about Romero. I think Sammy actually said it. At the moment, the guy's got 4 goals for Tottenham. He's had 4 red cards. His actual first ever goal in a Tottenham Hotspur stadium. And you know what, TJ? That's what we needed, right? We needed that fast start. We needed that first goal. But I think it's fair to say that even when Spurs go 1 up at the moment, TJ, would you say that you're overly confident Spurs are going to see out anything at the moment?
No, of course not. Come on, Rick. That was an absolute tapping of a question. I mean, you know, who's feeling confident? Hey, are we feeling confident at 2-0, Rick? Like, no, you know. So as far as Kuti goes, you know, great game. I thought he was terrific today. You know, he was dominant. He made some great tackles, and obviously that's a really difficult goal to score. You know, it's a really, really difficult goal to score that. To, you know, put that top bin side netting first. You know, that's a really difficult goal to score. And again, it's about will, right? And tenacity. So much of listen, man. I just said this to my nephew, right? You know, how I lean into the fact that I'm half Australian. So my mum's Australian. About 10 years ago, my sister moved out there with her family. And my nephew, Matteo, is really into football now, like really into it. And obviously, Ange being at Tottenham has kind of really given him an extra shot in the arm. And I sent him a video message the other day because he wants to improve and he's finding it difficult to play in team sports. And, you know, some kids are better than others and what have you. And I basically told him that one of the most important things you can bring to any team is never say die, tenacity. You never give up. And that's all I kind of bring to it. I'm not a great player, but no one's going to run more than me. No one's going to try harder than me. And Kuti will always give you that, like Højbjerg will always give you that, right? You know, and those players are so important, man. It's just kind of never say die players. They're really, really important. So I was very pleased to see him get on the score sheet. By the way, he scored twice as many goals as Richarlison. Centre-back scored twice as many goals as a centre-forward. And then with the Johnson thing, like, you know, I didn't think he had a good game because, again, he didn't put the ball in the back of the net. Do I think he's a bad player? No. And again, like, he was one of our metrics purchases. I talked about this again on a previous pod that we were on, Rick. And I'm really pleased that we're following the metrics. You know, again, like Tony Bloom over at Brighton has revolutionized like how to purchase players and metrics and things like that. And thank goodness we've finally subscribed to that model philosophically and literally. So I'm pleased about that. I also think he's playing in an unfamiliar position. You know, he's not used to playing on the left wing. He's used to playing right down the middle. So he's adapting to this position and he will get better. He's either going to have to learn to cross with his left foot or he's going to have to learn how to cut in on his right. And he'll get there. He's very young. He's like 15 minutes old, you know, so he's going to be absolutely fine. But you're absolutely right. Like, in the meantime, we've got more than enough to be beating all these teams that we're losing to. The issue, and again, I'll reiterate, is that we are beating ourselves right now.
Spot on.
I don't want us to use this beautiful PlayStation-esque football. It's precise and it's technical and it's visually astounding and really entertaining. I don't want us to start to become not only profligate, but dare I say arrogant. You know, if there's no end product, then what's it all for? We're not at the gallery. We're not here to admire something of great aesthetic beauty. You know, we're in a bar fight. This is a football match. It's about getting the ball in the back of the net. West Ham are ugly today, right? Completely outperformed. But to Sammy's wonderful analogy about getting his head kicked in by a skinhead, on their way down, they gave us 2 punches and gave us 2 black eyes and 1. You know, that's what it's about. And so that is something that really needs to be looked at. And is this perhaps, Russ, Sammy, Rick, our fabulous audience, is this perhaps a little immaturity creeping into the team? You know, so Kulu, I love how Kulu has become such a pivotal player for us this season. Again, is popping up with goals. He's so physical. And again, he always gives it his all. You know, he's 3 months older than Phil Foden. He's a baby, but he's a man-child, you know, because he's a unit. You know, I mean, you know, he looks like an armoire or something. He looks like a piece of furniture. He's
and his physicality has just got better and better. I mean, he's really become a strong player.
He's a leader and he's got that fire. You know what I mean? And so that's going to be really, really important for us. But he's 22 years old. Udogie turned 21 last week. You know, Sahu came on a baby. You know, Brian Hill. I mean, he looks like he should have a big bag of newspapers over his arm and be tossing it into people's front gardens. You know, and so I believe that the fragility is perhaps something to do with the immaturity of this side. And if we do take over all of our opportunities in the first half, I think a young team who goes in 4-0 or 4-1 at half time comes out with all that youthful swagger and scores another 3. Somebody, I'll look it up because somebody sent to me a message on X saying perhaps this is the week of that shellacking. Remember how we were talking about a shellacking a few weeks ago on the pod? And it wasn't to be today. I did think it would be 2-1, but I thought it would be 2-1 to us. But if we went in at 4-1 at half time, maybe it would have been the shellacking. But I think the immaturity is starting to creep in a little.
That's the key, isn't it? When you look at the fact, for Tottenham, they've now scored in 27 consecutive Premier League games. First time since 1996 to get off to that great start. And you look at the chances Spurs had. I mean, I've got to say, Porro was the main instigator of so many opportunities Spurs had during that game. I think if anyone comes out with any credit, Sam, and this is where, Sam, I think you said it earlier in the show, totally agree with you, Sam. Pedro Porro was no doubt in my mind one of the best players on the pitch for me. I think his improvement, Sam, so that you're coming on this, has been absolutely immense. When you consider where he was, Leicester away, that first game where he started, I think we all felt, wow, this guy's going to need a real acceleration into Premier League life. I mean, that is one player, Sam, so that you come in on him. He is really, really shone in the Spurs shirt. And I think if anyone can come out of any sense of credit from this game, it is Pedro Porro, right, Sam?
Yeah, he was the queen. So when we were talking about using a metaphorical phrase for the chessboard before and what's missing and what's there, he was the queen on the board for the game this evening. I think he was the playmaker, if I'm honest, and he started with fire as well. He was absolutely flying, and so did everybody else. But again, he just needs somebody there in the final quarter of the field to be able to back it up. I have to say, I've just listening to what TJ was saying there was just like the nodding Churchill dog again. I was like agreeing with absolutely everything that he said there, and I don't really have too much to say after that. And that just coming in on Kulusevski, what a great point about his age and his his maturity, because he joined and there were people saying the investment into him and Bentancur that they were questioning it initially, and then they hit the ground running and have been an absolute revelation to Tottenham Hotspur as a duo, individually as well, regardless to being a duo. But Kulusevski has got to be probably one of the most progressive players in the squad, and I'll tell you why, because he came in and showed his worth, his fight, his desire, and his skill set. But then what happened is you realise that a player like that cuts in on his left. He's going to make the same moves all the time.
That's the worry, though, Sam, isn't it? On that point there, that's the only worry with Kulu.
It's a worry, but if you're a boxer, again, to go back to the fighting analogy, he's the type of player that Ange Postecoglou wants in his squad, and this is the type of player he's become. Because if you're a boxer, you're still going to fight in the same stance, but what you're going to do is you're just going to toughen up to take the blows. And what he's done is he does still cut in on his left, but the physicality of him is that he's beasting through it. I mean, he is just turning into an absolute animal of a player.
Sam, I'll let you come back in, Sam. For me, on that point, it is just about trying to find that consistency with Kulusevski. Because again, you look at that game against City, for me, he was imperious. Then you need him to come and then follow that up the next game. And that's where, again, I think the age thing for me, that will hopefully come in time. Once we can try and get him into that rhythm of the fact that understanding that he is so, so important for the fact that these games week upon week, that we need that consistency there. It's great being an 8 out of 10 one week. We can't drop down to a 6. And I think that is the key. What I think with Ange at the moment, that what we found is, Sam, and please come back in on this, that when Ange was performing really, really well, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I really feel that a lot of the players were 8, 9s out of 10. For me, the concerning thing with Ange, in my opinion, is that if you start dropping down to a 5 or 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 throughout the whole 11 that's there, I don't think it performs anywhere near as well. And the whole structure of Ange shows you it relies on you taking your chances, because when you don't, you're susceptible at the other end. And that's exactly what's happened in the last 4 or 5 games, right, Sam?
Yeah, what a great statement. I mean, brilliant, Rick. You're on the money. I mean, I have to say that the words Ange Ball, the song by Robbie Williams that was created as well for Big Ange, all came in at a time when James Maddison was in the squad. And Mickey
Van der Ven, and we were flying and we were doing really well. And you're right. You're
I'm
right.
just saying. And now we're talking about individual player performances, because what happens is when you take a key playmaker out, you then start pinpointing and looking at individual performances. Not every player is going to have a 10 out of 10 game. In fact, one of the only players, in fact, two players that I've seen have 5 consistent games that I can remember have 5 consistent world-class games. Sergio Aguero and Harry Kane. In my remembrance, they are the 2 players that I have seen have 5 10 out of 10 performances in a row, right? And anybody else, they don't. They just don't. And so what happens is when the squad aren't at full capacity, when the car isn't running, you put red diesel into a Ferrari and you can only take it so far. And, I feel at the moment there's so many missing pieces that the players are getting really scrutinized for their individual performances. And I don't want to be one of these that the people are commenting on the show like, God, has this guy got anything negative to say? I've got loads negative to say. I'm proper pissed off for the 5th time tonight. I'm really upset with the performances, but I'm also really optimistic in terms of getting the squad back to full strength. I think that Sonny, from what I'm hearing, he's going to be potentially injured, and then what we're going to do? Me and Russ have probably. It could be. Then me and Russ saying we're not in crisis are going to have egg on our face because then
again, for me, this comes back down to the fact. And I know it's again. I'm not trying to be knee jerk, but we looked at it before the start of the season, Russ. We shared our concerns that ultimately you go in with a league or a squad that ultimately we know we all needed more with it. We know for Tottenham, in my opinion, I say it so often on this show. And sorry to keep sounding like a broken record. For me, we go in every window, we come out of every window. And for me, we're always 2 or 3 players short in absolute critical key positions. And centre half has been one that we've seen this window again, or this season so far. You look at the striker option that arguably, many would ask the question, will Spurs be missing Harry Kane? Like I said earlier in the show, this is exactly the kind of game you miss Harry Kane. You're crying out for a goal. It's a Harry Kane type of game, but he's not there to do it. And I must quickly just touch upon West Ham's equaliser and then winner before we look ahead to Newcastle coming over to you, Russ, because, the first one, that's a real touch of fortune. Kudos has a shot which rickets off Romero right and off Davis as well, right into the path of Bowen to fire past Vicario, who had dived the other way originally for a shot that was out of his position. That's the first one. And then the second one, it's an absolute mess at the back from Spurs to gift West Ham the second goal. Udogie hitting under hitting a pass back, and Vicario coming out to deny Bowen. But Ward-Prowse hit the rebound off the post, then it falls right back at his feet to put in the winner. I mean, Russ, if I was to say to you, have you ever seen 2 goals that are so Spurs in your time of supporting Tottenham? Are those the 2 that automatically would come to mind now? Because you can't make that up, can you, Russ? You can't make that up.
No, you couldn't make it up, but it highlights the second one, a point that we were talking about earlier on the show with youth. And Udogie, first half, excellent, absolutely excellent. But in the second half, he wasn't quite so excellent because he wasn't allowed to play because of the way West Ham played. And there he is, little lack of concentration, youthful mistake. And, it's a mistake that leads ultimately to their second goal and the winner. But, they'll all be there tomorrow, Spursy. It's so dull. It's so boring. But they might have a point about the manner.
Of course.
Forget the word. The manner that these things happen to us, Rick, over and over again. And it does come down to mentality. I've always been huge on that in my own mind about Spurs as a football club, certainly in the last 10 years plus. Mentality.
Is that
you see glimpses of it and you go, and then you go, oh, no.
Just to come back on that, Russ, for you, I'll let you answer this, Russ. Is that the concern? Is it from the very top, Russ, that concern, that mentality that if that mentality is not there to win from the very, very top? And again, look, we've had injuries. I'm not doubting that. We're going through a difficult period. And I've got to say, I've been really impressed by the way Ange just handled the pre and the post-match presses. He's never too high. He's never too low. He's always fairly in the middle. Yeah. Do you think, Russ, can a manager change that mindset of the whole football club? You've said it there. This isn't 1 year. This isn't 2 years. This isn't 3 years. It's not 5 years. It's not 10 years. you know, you look back at Tottenham's last trophies 15 years ago. Can, in your opinion, Russ, can Postecoglou change this? This is arguably his biggest test he's ever going to have in his career.
Yeah.
Can he do it, in your opinion? Do you believe he can?
I would like to think that the chairman and the board of that football club looked at the first few games of the season and thought, blimey, he's good, this guy. This is good. And hopefully the chairman was watching the passing in the first half. One touch, beautiful football. West Ham couldn't get anywhere near us. Should have scored more goals. We know that. But if you see that as a chairman of a football club, if you love football, if you understand the game, of course you're going to go, we need to give him some more ammunition, don't we, boys and girls? Because it's so obvious. So, you know, the proof is going to be in the pudding once again. So, but don't hold your breath for January, anyone. I'll be amazed. I mean, I know we spoke about Porro last day, Kulusevski and Bentancur coming in on loan from Juventus, I think I'm right in saying, and they were finalised a few months later. Now, that could happen, loan players coming in. But it's the summer where the big transfer party will have to happen. Yeah.
You know what? It's so hard. I mean, like I say, you look at the end of that game, another late change. Hello, Feliz replacing Sonu. Now we know Sammy has also then told us as well, concerning over his injury, limping a bit. Again, there's been images shared around at full time. We'll know more, obviously, on Son later in the week. But
I'm getting messages now, Rick, actually, to be fair. I'm getting a couple of messages now. He's injured by the sounds of things. So,
okay.
But listen, I mean, what do I know? But I'm getting some information through that he's injured, so that doesn't sound very good, does it? It's a bit disheartening.
Listen, we are going to keep our fingers crossed. What we are going to do, we are going to go for our final break of this show for our listeners on audio, where we're going to turn our attention to Newcastle United in a quick 5-minute preview. This preview comes to you for our listeners on audio by wonderful Matt Ketchell over at 442. And just a quick reminder here, last one on Spurs, guys, a little bit of housekeeping if we can. That, as always, we'd like to be sponsored by NordVPN. You can right now get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 1 month for free and a bonus gift. It is completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, just to let you guys know that. And this last one on Spurs, we're pleased to say, is sponsored by the Watch Marketplace. Now, it's a third-generation family jeweler that was founded by Oliver Burns. Watch Marketplace prides itself on unbeatable service levels, which is demonstrated by their countless 5-star reviews. 2 examples of those watches you can see right now are on your screen there. The 20232 unworn Rolex, date just 36. Please go and check those guys out. And yeah, like I say, we'll hopefully have them on a number of different shows coming up. Right, we are going to turn our attention, if we can now, to Newcastle United on Sunday. TJ, I'm going to start with you. Newcastle coming off a comprehensive 3-0 defeat to Everton. Now, many would not have seen that result coming. That result does see Everton come out of the bottom 3. What it does in terms of the league table, as we reflect at the moment on the back of obviously Spurs' defeat there at home to West Ham United, is that at the moment it's a real 6-pointer going into the weekend between Spurs and Newcastle United. And, you know, I said this to Russ actually in the green room before the show, that I'm actually quite worried, TJ, because we're facing a Newcastle side, in my opinion, that are going to be an angry Newcastle side. They're going to really, I want to feel, extract some revenge. They've got a fairly decent record up at the Spurs Stadium in recent years. They are also, similar to Spurs, been decimated by injuries. How do you see, TJ, this game panning out at the Spurs Stadium in what, less than what we're looking at now, 72 hours?
I think if one would try to predict this result, you know, you would need several crystal balls and, you know, binoculars looking at them, because we're really quite similar. You know, again, so Newcastle have been through this transformative period. Again, no disrespect to Newcastle, but they've leveled up significantly, right? You know, from a team who have a rich history and, you know, a fervent fan base. But I don't think it would be too disrespectful to them to say, you know, it's not like they're a Champions League kind of stalwart, you know, like we have been over the last decade. And so to predict how this game is going to go, It's that, isn't it? I mean, does anyone think, oh, I mean, I know people are saying they're going to turn us over and all that kind of thing. I do believe that, in the great poker game of life, a lot of us are feeling on tilt right now. We've just lost a hand where we really shouldn't have lost the hand. And so I think there's a lot of emotion speaking, a lot of, heart rather than head. I can absolutely see us beating them comprehensively. I can absolutely see them beating us comprehensively.
Spot on.
Isn't it? We're just those sides.
Yeah.
Again, guys, to keep beating this tired old drum, if our conversion rate, I'd love for somebody out there, if they could just do a quick Google or something and look at our conversion rate, like maybe over like the last 6 games or something. I mean, what's it going to be? 5%? It's going to be like 1 in 20 because we create so many chances. How many shots did we have today? If I had to guess, I would say it's going to be in the high teens, right? Great, TJ. Thanks very much. TTP forever. I would say it's sort of 15, 16, maybe even 17, shots, and our conversion rate was 1. And so they feel like quite a similar team to us right now, a team in flux, a team that's transitioning. Again, sort of generally how I'm feeling about that game, I couldn't tell you what that result's going to be. I'm also feeling, I think like we're all feeling, is that this season is so experimental. And again, if people are feeling really down, not just in an attempt to lift you up, but it could have been so much worse because it's a brand new system for us. We've only been doing this, since September, and where are we now? It's December. It's no time, guys. It's no time. It took, how long has Arteta been at Arsenal now? Is this his 5th season now?
I think four, but you're right, TJ. It's a process. I mean, the guys finished 8th.
Like, 5, is it, Sammy? So give us a chance, man. Like, we came out and we're top of the league and we went 10 games unbeaten, under a brand new manager from Australia that nobody had ever heard of. So really do think about that, not just to kind of put a silver lining on a cloud. Of course, I'm upset. I never want to lose a football game, but it's such a new experiment. So who knows? I mean, listen, if we do go and put 3 past them at the weekend, I'm not on the podcast after that. You're all going to be on it, hey, turning cartwheels down Main Street because, that Ange, but like we were after the Man City game, we were like, yeah, fantastic. Look at us. And so, we're still, where are we now? 6th? I haven't looked at the table yet. Something like that.
I think many don't want to look at the table. I think where Spurs are as we go at the moment, like I say, to that weekend's game, Spurs currently are 5th in the Premier League. They're on level points with Manchester United on goal difference now. Newcastle a point behind in 7th on 26 points. Spurs 27. It's a massive game. Massive game.
We haven't won a game since October, and we're still in 5th. So listen, that's not TJ Ramini being Mr. Optimistic and Mr. Positive. That's just TJ Ramini looking at his phone and going, 5th. You know what I mean? That's just eyesight. What I would say on that, TJ, just to obviously come back on that, and I'll get your prediction in a second, is that what West Ham are sitting in 9th, they're only 3 points off Tottenham in 5th. Fine,
that tells you just how close that table is right now in terms of
because no one's been that clever this season, Rick. No one's been that clever.
You're right. I mean, look at the fact of the matter is tonight. You're right, TJ. A Spurs win tonight puts us on level points with City. That's how crazy the league is, right, TJ?
Correct. Yes, absolutely right. And remember, we're not even at Christmas yet. No. It's the back end of the like Arsenal last season. Flying, get past Christmas, doing really well. Come March or April, fell apart joyously. God, that was wonderful. And so it's a long old slog. It's so competitive. I'm hoping that, dear Russ, I hope you're wrong. I hope we get 2 in at January. Can we ask for 2 rather than 1? And that might be the difference for us. And so it really isn't that bad. Of course, today was disappointing. And again, we've beaten ourselves. That's so infuriating. If you get played off the park and you lose, then c'est la vie. But today we beat ourselves again, like we did against Villa, which was annoying. But we're still in 5th and within touching distance. We still have a run at finishing in the top 4 in this first season where we're in the laboratory. We're trying different things and a lot of it's working and a lot of it isn't.
TJ, I mean it when I say, mate, it is always a pleasure having you on. You know,
Thank you, mate.
you are as regular as they become right now. Bless you. You're back with us for Forest, where we're going to need plenty of optimism and hope. TJ, thank you so much, my man. Always a pleasure.
Of course, mate. Thank you.
Honestly, we need that hope right now. We need that optimism. TJ bringing it in their droves. Sam, let me just say firstly, thank you for doing your utmost to try and keep us level-headed. And at a time where many are losing their heads, like I say, we need, like I say, the optimism and hope that we can recover from this. And, you know, Sam, I will come to you because Newcastle, like I said there with TJ, it is now what you've got to say is a really important game for Tottenham in the context of where you look at that league table. You know, the fact for Tottenham now, you look at 3 points separating Spurs in 5th to West Ham United in 9th. You know, that just tells you how clutched together those teams are. Do you put it down, Sam, the weekend's game against West Ham? The weekend's game at Newcastle. Is that a must-win game? Or is that unfair for me to label it that, given the context of Newcastle as a side who have again got a lot of injuries, haven't got great away form, just been beaten by Everton comprehensively 3-0. What do you think for you, Sam?
Good question. I need 60 seconds to digest that. I'm trying to think on my feet. I mean, it changed when you just mentioned about the difference between 9th and 5th, actually, Rick, and I was just digesting that because I feel as though now it is all must-win games, actually. Yeah, I mean, that is that tight that I think you have to. But, you know, I've got to say, I mean, can I just say this? I mean, I'm not just trying to be positive. I mean, thank you, everybody, for listening, and I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just trying to be upbeat about some things that I think are positives that we're all picking out as negatives. And, you know, I've seen a few comments there about, you know, ripping me for knowing about the Sonny injury and whatever and stuff like that. I mean, I worked in the Premier League for 10 years. You know, I've got some superb contacts at Tottenham, Liverpool and Manchester United. And I just want to try and bring my best to the Tottenham community when I'm on here as well. So I apologise if I ruffle anybody's feathers the wrong way, but I will always speak what's on my mind. And, you know, I have to say, if we were in this position, and we've been in this position many times, that has looked like a decline, and let's be honest with you, factually, it looks like a decline. I genuinely don't believe it is. And, you know, I just don't. And I'm sorry if that comes across as overconfidence. And Anthony Costa would be punching or throwing darts at a dartboard with my face on it right now. And I know for sure being this positive, but it's just, I just feel as though with what we've got, we're trying our best. Newcastle, I feel like we can beat Newcastle United. Yes, I do. If we play the way that we did in the second half tonight, it's obvious that we won't. Tottenham were obviously there for the taking, but I think we can beat Newcastle United in the next game, no problem at all. Whether they're coming in off the back of a loss, I don't think it makes a massive difference. And I know that, you know, it's said that the mentality coming in off a game, they're on a dip. Can we beat them? Newcastle United are absolutely fire. They are. You cannot give them an inch, and they will take a mile. They are so underrated. They've got such a good squad, and the manager is mustard. He knows exactly what he's doing going into a team like Tottenham Hotspur, playing the high line. Now we've given our game away. You know, managers are setting up to play against a team like this. The difference is when you've got players like Romero in the box scoring headers and everybody forward, and Udogie so far up, he looks like a striker at times, that you need to, Ange needs to have the type of players that can get back and quickly in position at this time. And that's why they compared him to Pep Guardiola, his style of play to Pep Guardiola, and there was all the joking back and forth about whether he's copying Pep. The difference is that Pep Guardiola had the likes of Kyle Walker and so forth that got forward and got back incredibly quickly. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to play a game that the players that are playing that game just aren't quite capable of adapting to. I still want to keep my faith in what he's doing, and I'm massively backing Ange Postecoglou, and I think we'll beat Newcastle United 2-1.
Sam, thank you, mate. Thank you for your honesty. And I've got to say again, mate, you come in and you always speak your mind. That's what we need, mate. So thank you so much.
Always. And Rick, I just have to say one more thing just before we go.
Please.
Is that coming to the podcast awards with you was such an incredible experience. The people that we met, the achievement that you have from having one of the top podcasts, not only in the world sports podcast, but in the Premier League, is a huge achievement. I'm absolutely humbled to be part of it and meet all these amazing people while I'm on it, every time I'm on it. So just thank you. Let's just try and keep the love for the manager, keep the love for the squad, keep the love for everybody else. And that's all I want to do, share a bit of positivity. Come on, you Spurs.
Sam, thank you for keeping me grounded. You're a diamond, mate. Thank you. It was a lovely night. Although, what I have to say, since we've been award-winning, we haven't won a game since, which nothing to do with anything. I mean, I don't know what that's happened since there, but what could you say, really, on what we're witnessing right now? Russ, I'm going to close it with you, mate. It's look tricky, right? I mean, you did say to me, Russ, and look, this was before the season started when you said, Rick, we're going to do this more often. You did say to me, Rick, there's going to be bumps in the road. It's going to be difficult times ahead, but we are going to find a way. And you know what? Ange, to close it, said, look, on turning things around, he said, there's no point feeling sorry for ourselves, looking for a cuddle anywhere. There's only one way to change our circumstances, and that is to come here on Sunday and put in a performance, not just play good football, but go out there and show some conviction about ourselves as a team. Sometimes we can disguise how we're going to be playing by playing some nice stuff. But like I said from day one, that's not what I'm about. I want to win. And that's why when I came to this football club, that was the message I gave. We've still got a long way to go. I've said that from the start. We're still right at the beginning of what we need to create. And days like this just give me further evidence and fuel of how much we need to do. I love the way the man speaks. I love his positivity. I love his optimism. I love his hope. But how much, Russ, is Newcastle now a massive, massive game in the context of just keeping everybody believing that we're on the right path? Because as fans who've had a difficult last 3-4 years, I think we all feel we have got the right man in place. I think there is now really alarming concerns, as both Sam and TJ and yourself have touched upon, about how this January window now is going to really, really maybe impact where Spurs' season goes. We've got players that are out injured that are critical, as you've seen to the way Ange plays. Just how much, Russ, you're back with me on Sunday for that game. Sorry, I have to say in advance.
Thanks a lot.
How critical is this game in our season now? How big is it for you?
I think Sammy and TJ have said pretty much everything about the game, and and a big well done from me on everything you're doing. Thanks for the invite, by the way. Next year, don't forget me. Okay, I might even buy a bottle of the old shampoo for you when you win.
Come on, man.
But to get back to the game on Sunday, I think it's a must-win for Tottenham. I really, really do, because these little bumps are turning into quite a big pothole, I think, now. And I think the fans need 3 points. Look at the points in the league. We need 3 points. I think Ange needs to get that winning feeling again, because you can believe in yourself all that you do, but those little demons start sort of nibbling away the longer it goes on. And perhaps most of all, I want it to be payback for the appalling defeat that I was at St James's Park last spring, where we were a total and utter embarrassment. But we're a million times better now under this manager. There's your positivity. But for everyone who was there, every one of us who suffered it watching on television, it was an absolute disgrace of a performance. But Harry Kane still managed to get a goal. Funny that, isn't it?
Funny. On nights like this,
nevertheless, well, I think to be without referring too much to that, I was really pissed off with that defeat. It's a long way to come home after a night in the big market, but which was great fun, by the way. I just think we've got to win, and to lose it, I think it wouldn't be disastrous, but I think it would cloud all of our Christmases for the football.
I would, 100%. Russ, sorry to ask you. I am going to have to ask you for a prediction.
2-0 Spurs.
Need it, don't we?
Who's going to score? Haven't got a clue. It won't be sunny by the sound of it, will it, Sam? No. And what worries me is they've got Isak fit again. He's a tremendous player, but he's on form. So we've got to solve that conundrum. And we couldn't do it with sunny today. But anyway, fingers crossed. I'll be here after the game. Rob, what time are we on? Early evening, isn't it? Lovely.
We are, mate. We are back early evening.
Can't wait, Rick.
I know. I bet you can't. We need it. Can I just say, just on Sonny, a last-minute update we have had here that has come through to us here. This is Sonny's going through the mix zone again, and Sam's been great in terms of keeping us updated in terms of where we are at. Sonny has said, no, I'm okay. Let's see. So, look, who knows where this is going. But look, hope there's a positive way to leave it.
Yeah.
Sonny there coming out of the mix zone saying, no, I'm okay. Let's see. Maybe doesn't want to put the frighteners up us all. But it feels like it's a really critical next few days in the hub of what is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, in the soap opera, what is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, giving you some light relief and trying to keep us on track of what Lee McQueen, as TJ knows, is the crazy train of the didgeridoo, which he famously showed us last week, bless his heart. These guys have tried to keep us on balance here. We've had the wonderful Russ Williams. Russ, thank you, mate. Never easy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sammy
Powell, Sam, thank you, mate, for flying the flag. We appreciate my man. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you very much, guys. And yeah, sorry it's not under different circumstances, but appreciate being on here. And we said it wasn't going to be therapy. I feel like a little bit for me it was.
I tell you what, I think as Russ said to me, it's been a dose of reality coming away from this now. I do feel that coming away from this, we've got to pick ourselves up in terms of the next few days now and really try and move forward. And TJ, mate, thank you, mate, for always keeping it real, for being honest as always. And we look forward, mate, to seeing you again next week, where hopefully we're under better circumstances, mate.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me as ever, Rick, and chaps, Russ and Sammy. Lovely to see you. Fantastic comments again from the viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
And we started by saying that it isn't going to be therapy, but I'm with Sammy. I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. And again, you know, let us be realistic and just say, listen, we started brilliantly, and if we win these games that we should have won, we would have been second or maybe even first. But we are in fifth. That ain't too bad, considering how badly we've played. We're still in fifth. We're still within touching distance. We have a fantastic manager that the whole world adores, not just us. So we're in a really, really great position. Come on, you Spurs.
CJ, thank you so much. Guys, to the 3,500 that have stayed up to watch it with us,
Brilliant.
Thank you for all your incredible support for the show. Look, hopefully we're going to bring to you on Sunday some positivity and a winning return from the wonderful Russ Williams, from the brilliant Sammy Powell, from the great TJ Ramini. We've been the last one on Spurs. We thank you for all your support. Please keep safe, keep well, and as always,